picture this because I'd bet money it's happened to you sometime in the last month. It's 5:30 p.m. on a Friday. You've just wrapped up a 40-hour week according to HR, but your body knows it wasn't 40. You walk out of the office, get in your car, step onto the train, or stand in the parking lot while cold air slaps you in the face. Physically, you're out of work. Mentally, you're not. Your brain feels thick like wet cotton. You're still gripping your laptop like a debt you can't put down. Your phone buzzes with work notifications, a Slack message, an email that starts with quick question, a calendar reminder for Monday. None of it is truly urgent, but it's enough to keep your mind from ever fully unclenching. You stop at a gas station, not because you're on empty, but because it's convenient. You grab an energy drink, a bag of snacks, something just to get through. Or you don't even stop, you tap your phone and order dinner because tonight you don't want to think. You already know what's coming, takeout. Something calorie-dense, something that makes you feel warm and calm for 20 minutes. Not because you're hungry, because you're drained. You get home, toss your keys on the counter. You open the fridge and stare into it like it's a math problem you don't have the brain power to solve. You're not hungry. You just want your mind to shut up. You collapse onto the couch and put something on to quiet the noise in your head, a show you half-watch, an endless scroll, anything that lets you stop being you for a couple hours. And in that moment, you tell yourself, I earned this. I worked all week. But what if I told you this? You think you're spending money. You're really spending life hours. Not $45 or $15. 2 to 5 hours of your life quietly traded away. No receipt says exhaustion fee. No line on your paycheck that says nervous system recovery charge. It just disappears.
As you
Sound
can see
familiar?
from this overview,
Don't deny it
the
too fast.
opportunities ahead
Just
of us
think
are
back over the
significant.
last 7 days.
Welcome,
1
everyone.
week. A
Today,
handful
we're
of
diving
small,
into the
totally
future of
reasonable,
design.
totally
And the best part
understandable
is,
purchases. And then you check your account at the end of the month and blurt out, wait, where did my money go? If that question has ever flashed through your mind, the next part might make you a little uncomfortable. But it's the good kind of uncomfortable. The kind where you can't go back to looking at work money and time the same way again. Stick with me for a few more minutes. We're about to run an audit that most people are too scared to do, and this is where the story starts to get genuinely uncomfortable. Not because you're reckless with money, because you've been calculating your pay wrong from the very first assumption. In the US, we're taught to treat salary like a badge of honor, a number that lets you exhale and go, okay, I'm good. A number you put on LinkedIn, tell your family, use to reassure yourself you're on the right track. 70 grand a year, 90, 120. It sounds solid. It sounds safe. But here's the problem, that's just revenue. And focusing on revenue while ignoring expenses is the fastest way a business goes bankrupt. A company can bring in millions, but if it costs almost that much to operate, it isn't rich. It's bleeding out and refusing to look at the wound. And what's wild is everyone understands this when we're talking about businesses. But when we're talking about ourselves, we make the exact same mistake. We look at gross pay like it's the whole story. Then we blame ourselves when the money disappears, the energy disappears, and life disappears right along with it. The problem isn't that you lack discipline. The problem is you're tracking the wrong KPI. You're measuring your life by revenue when the thing that determines whether you're actually okay is profit margin. So hold on to one simple formula because it changes how you see everything. Real hourly wage equals the money you actually keep divided by the total number of hours your job truly consumes. Not 40 hours on paper. Real hours getting ready, commuting, being stuck, recovering. If you were a business, this is your margin. And if your margin is negative, you can look fine on the outside, but in reality, you're selling yourself below cost. Sounds a little extreme. Let me give you a quick hook. There are people who get a $10,000 raise and their real hourly wage goes down. That sounds impossible if you only look at revenue, but it makes perfect sense once you look at costs. Because the costs climb faster than the pay, more commuting, more showing up the part, more takeout, because you're busier, and most importantly, more stress, which means more spending just to decompress. You're moving more money through your account, but keeping less life for yourself. Have you ever accepted an offer and only looked at the gross number? If you have, you're the standard target for this trap. Not because you're stupid, because almost nobody ever teaches you how to calculate your real wage, and if you want to know what your real wage actually is, the next part is where the mask starts to come off. All right, Now we do the exact brutal audit I warned you about. And fair warning, this part won't make you richer overnight, but it will make you look at your paycheck the way you look at a bill that keeps getting hit with hidden fees. We're going to break this down into 5 layers of costs. Each layer is a tax you pay simply for having a job. And the scary part is, you've been paying a lot of these without ever naming them. Layer 1 is taxes and withholding. Yes, everyone knows this one. Federal tax, state tax, FICA, plus all the little deductions. You look at gross, then you look at net, and you shrug, like, yeah, that's life. This is the easy part. But it's only the beginning, because it's the only part that's clearly printed on paper. Everything after this is like dust in your house. You don't see it, but you breathe it in every day. Layer 2 is the cost of showing up, appearance, and commuting. It sounds civilized, but in real life it means this money you spend just to be there and look like a professional. You buy shoes that are presentable not because you love shoes, but because you don't want to be judged in a meeting. You buy the button-downs, the slacks, the blazer, the belt, the whole uniform, not because it feels like you, but because it's the social dress code. Then there's the commute, gas insurance, parking, depreciation, maintenance. In the US, a lot of people don't keep a car because they're car people. They keep a car because they need to get to work. You didn't buy a car. You bought access to the place where you earn money. That's when it hits you. You're paying money for the privilege of being allowed to make money. Layer 3 is the convenience tax. This is the one that makes people uncomfortable because it lands on the truth you're not spending because you love it. You're spending because you're tired. That $5 to $7 Starbucks isn't because you're a coffee snob. It's because you don't have the energy to brew it. Takeout isn't because you lack discipline. It's because you don't have the brain to cook. You tap DoorDash or Uber Eats because you don't have the capacity to decide. You hit the drive-thru because you don't have the capacity to handle one more thing. And that convenience fee isn't just food. It's everything you buy to save a few minutes packaged meals instead of cooking services, instead of doing it yourself, anything fast, instead of anything good. You're paying for decisions you no longer have the strength to make. And you think you're buying time, but half the time you're just buying a little numbness. Layer 4 is decompression spending. This is the darkest category, and it's the one that's both funny and sad if you're honest. On the weekend, you're not having fun. You're breathing. You go to happy hour not because you love the noise, but because you need to feel like a human again. You book a short trip not because you're adventurous, but because you need to escape the life you're trapped in. You toss a few things into your Amazon cart or wander through Target for a treat, not because you need the stuff, but because you need the feeling that you're still alive. Your job doesn't just take your energy. It sells you the painkillers. And you keep paying for the painkillers, then you wonder why you never get ahead. Layer 5 is the invisible cost. This is the one that bleeds you without leaving a mark. Sleep goes down, health goes down. And in the US, all it takes is one real illness for an invisible cost to turn into a very visible bill: premiums, co-pays, prescriptions, therapy. Relationships wear down because you're present but not there. You talk to the people you love with a mind that's still at work. You want to learn a skill, work out, build something for your future, but you're always out of battery. And the worst part is opportunity. Just make it easy. Purchase today is a future option you don't have tomorrow, the option to save, the option to invest, the option to change jobs, the option to get out. The most dangerous costs are the ones that don't come with receipts. You don't watch money leave your wallet. You watch your life leave you. Now pause for 3 seconds. Out of these 5 layers, which one is eating you the most? Don't answer me. Just be honest with yourself. Because the moment you name it, you start to see what you used to call a good salary for what it really is. A pretty number that's been hiding a margin that's quietly collapsing. And if you thought the last part was uncomfortable, here comes the second shock. Because up to now, we've only been talking about money. But a wage is a fraction. Money divided by time. And here's the neat little story HR sells you. You work 40 hours a week. It sounds clean. It sounds controllable. But that's an HR story. It's not your life. Your life has something else. I call it shadow hours. Shadow work. Hours nobody pays you for, nobody writes into the contract, but they still belong to the job. And it's these ghost hours that burn you out, even when on paper you're just a normal full-time employee. Morning starts. HR doesn't count the time you spend showering, ironing, or picking something that looks right. HR doesn't count the time you spend booting up your brain, coffee, meeting agendas, email triage, bracing yourself for the day before you've even left the house. But ask yourself this. If you didn't have that job, would you need all those rituals with that level of tension? Or is this really 30 to 60 minutes of unpaid labor just to become the version of you that's usable for the company? Then comes the commute. In the US, a huge number of people live 30, 45, or 60 minutes from work. On paper, that's personal time. But you know it isn't. You can't relax. You're stuck between two places with a mind that's still half at work. Driving is stressful. The train is exhausting in its own way. Either way, it's time your job takes without paying you for it. Then lunch. In theory, it's a break. In reality, it's time you're being held. You can't go home. You can't nap. You can't take a real walk like a free human being. You eat fast, scroll fast, then you go back. That's not rest. That's a pause button so the draining can continue. And then there's the part people don't want to admit, the aftershock. You get home, you're physically home, but your mind is still in that 2 p.m. meeting. You replay a sentence, an email, a moment, a tone. You freeze. You get irritable for no reason. You scroll on autopilot. You tell yourself you're lazy. No. You're recovering from a day that stretched your nervous system tight. And the worst part is, there's no finish line. Modern work doesn't end at the office door. It moves into your phone. An email at 9 p.m., a message that says, "Need this first thing tomorrow." A vague fear that if you don't respond, you'll be judged. You're not tired because work is hard. You're tired because it never ends. And here's the indictment: your job doesn't take 8 hours from you. It takes your whole day in fragments. If that feels true, you're going to want to hear the math in the next part, because it's a little brutal. Don't leave here. This is where the numbers start telling the truth. So now we do the calculation that almost nobody wants to do. Because it's like looking at your bank statement after a month of "I didn't even buy that much." But if you want to know why you worked all week and your account still feels empty, this is where you have to look. And I promise I'm not going to dump a spreadsheet on your face. We're doing this in 3 quick cuts: net pay, hidden costs, and real hours. Done. First cut: net pay. You hear $30 an hour and you assume that's what you take home. No, that's revenue. Before you even touch it, taxes and withholding take a big bite. That $30 per hour on the offer letter can turn into $22 to $24 an hour actually landing in your account. And a lot of people stop right there, sigh, and keep living like normal. But if you stop there, you're still looking at the wrong number. Second cut: hidden costs. This is where your wage starts melting like snow. Let me give you 2 examples. Person A is Mike. Mike has a solid job. On paper, the pay looks good. But Mike has a long commute. 90 minutes a day, round trip easy. Mike keeps a car mostly for work and pays insurance, gas, parking, maintenance, all of it. Mike eats convenience because he doesn't have the energy to cook coffee, on the run lunch, on the run takeout at night because thinking feels like work. And then the weekend hits and Mike decompresses: a happy hour tab, a few little impulse buys, a delivery order because I earned it. Not because Mike is irresponsible, because without those little escapes, Mike feels like he can't breathe. Those aren't lifestyle expenses. Those are the costs of tolerating the job. Person B is Alex. Alex makes less than Mike on paper, but Alex lives closer or works hybrid or remote a few days a week. Alex doesn't need an expensive car just to survive, or at least doesn't have to run it like a machine. Alex keeps the wardrobe simple and spends less on looking the part. Alex has time to prep food and spends less on convenience. And because the stress is lower, Alex spends less on painkillers for the mind. So what happens? On paper, Mike looks richer. But in the margin, and the money left over and life left over, Alex can be dramatically richer. Third cut: real hours. This is where the $30 per hour dies completely. Mike doesn't work 40 hours. Mike lives around the job for 55 to 60 hours a week once you count getting ready, commuting, being stuck at lunch, and the aftershock when you get home. Mike isn't selling 8 hours. Mike is selling the whole day in fragments. And when you take net pay after tax, subtract the hidden costs of working, and divide by the total hours the job actually consumes, that $30 per hour evaporates. It can fall to $11 to $8, and in high-stress, high-cost situations, it drops to the number that makes you sick: $4 an hour. And here's the punchline you need to hear. You think you're selling time. You're really selling the entire ecosystem of your life around the job. You're not paid well. You're running a business at a loss. And if you're thinking there's no way it's that low good, you just hit the biggest blind spot. Because once you see it, the next question isn't how much do I make, it's what do I do to stop getting bled out. And here's where the trap gets more sophisticated because Golden Handcuffs version 2.0 isn't just about a promotion or a new title. It's a self-locking system. More pay leads to higher fixed costs. Higher fixed costs create higher dependence, and higher dependence creates that quiet fear that you are not allowed to stop. You push harder and you get more exhausted because you're no longer running to live better. You're running so you don't collapse. And it starts out sounding completely reasonable. You get a raise and you tell yourself you earned it. So you upgrade your standard of living. A nicer apartment, a better neighborhood, closer to downtown, or at least something that matches the new version of you you're trying to be. But the cold truth is, you didn't buy an apartment. You bought a bill that makes you afraid to take a breath. Rent or a mortgage turns into a ticking clock in your head every month. It doesn't need to scream. It just needs to come due. Then comes the car. You tell yourself it's about safety. Less breaking down. Less time in the shop. Sounds responsible. But at the same time, you sign up for a car payment, insurance, registration, maintenance, and you strap yourself to another monthly obligation. You think you're buying security. What you're really buying is one more reason to panic the moment your company starts using words like layoffs or restructuring. Then comes convenience. When you get busier, you buy more convenience, more takeout, more coffee, more services. Not because you're extravagant, because you don't have the time or energy to do it yourself anymore. And every dollar you pay for convenience is a dollar you're paying for time your job already took from you earlier. You're paying twice, once with your time and again with your money. Then comes decompression. As stress climbs, you need exits. A short getaway just to breathe. A more expensive vacation because you need to recover. A few impulse purchases because you've been grinding so hard. Nobody's saying those things are evil. The problem is the loop. The more stressed you are, the more you spend just to tolerate being stressed. And that's how you end up moving more money through your bank account while keeping less life for yourself. From the outside, it looks like you're leveling up. On the inside, your margin of safety gets thinner and thinner until one small slip makes everything start to shake. Here's the hardest sentence to swallow. You didn't level up. You leveled up your minimum cost of survival inside the lifestyle your job is forcing you to maintain. Now let me ask you one question and answer it honestly in your head. Do you own something that would make you panic if you lost your job for 2 months? If you do, you understand golden handcuffs. I'm not telling you to quit your job and disappear. I'm not telling you to put in your notice next week. Move into the woods, live off-grid, and pretend bills don't exist. In the US, most people have rent or a mortgage, a car payment, insurance, surprise medical expenses, kids, daycare, student loans, and a running list of responsibilities that reads like meeting minutes. I get it. But I also don't want you to keep playing a game you're guaranteed to lose just because you're using the wrong scoreboard. I'm saying stop playing the revenue game. Start playing the margin game. Don't stare at gross salary and hypnotize yourself into thinking you're fine. Look at what's left after the job takes its cut, because what's left is your actual life. Your life margin is the gap between the money and time you still have after taxes, after work-related costs, after the ghost hours your job quietly consumes. When that gap gets wider, you can breathe. You have options. You feel like you're in control. When it gets narrower, you're locked in, even if the salary looks high. And the important part is you don't have to wait for your boss to give you a raise to improve it. You have 3 practical levers you can pull right now. Lever 1 is cutting work-related costs. This is like lowering cost of goods sold in a business. Meal prepping on Sunday isn't sexy, but it cuts off an entire chain of takeout during the week. It cuts those DoorDash orders you place when your brain is fried. It cuts the overpriced coffees you buy because you don't have the energy to brew. Dropping the office appearance arms race matters too. You don't need to compete in a silent fashion war to prove you're professional. Simplify your wardrobe, buy less, stop chasing invisible standards, and you'll save both money and mental bandwidth. Optimizing your commute can be even bigger. If you cut 20 to 30 minutes of travel time per day, you're buying back dozens of hours a month. That's a raise no one has to approve. Lever 2 is cutting shadow hours. This is harder because it's about boundaries, but it frees up your life the fastest. You need a clear rule for after-hours email and messages, not I'll try an actual rule. You need a shutdown ritual so your brain believes the workday ended. Close the laptop, turn off notifications, take a 10-minute walk, shower, change environments. Write down the 3 most important tasks for tomorrow so your mind doesn't drag them into bed. You're training your nervous system to end the day. A lot of people aren't tired because their job is difficult. They're tired because there's no finish line, so their brain stays on guard all night. Lever 3 is increasing your leverage. This is the lever that makes you feel like you have your hands back on the wheel. Negotiate 1 or 2 remote days per week. That alone can cut commuting time, gas, rushed lunches, and a big chunk of stress. Negotiate flexible hours so you're not forced into convenience spending just because you're out of time. If you can move closer or shift into a role that costs you less to do. The goal isn't to earn more at any price. The goal is to increase margin so you still have a life after work. Now for the one-sheet exercise. Do it on Sunday, when you're clear, not when you're wrecked on Friday night. Calculate 4 numbers. 1. Net pay, what actually hits your account. 2. Work-related costs, every expense that exists only because you have that job, from commuting and convenience food to clothing to decompression spending, is job-driven. 3. Total committed hours, the real hours the job takes, including getting ready, travel, being stuck, and recovery. 4. Your real hourly wage, net pay, minus work costs divided by total real hours. Write that number on a sticky note and put it on your card or your phone screen. The next time you're about to buy something on autopilot, translate the price into life hours. That $120 item stops being $120. It becomes 8 hours of traffic, 8 hours of meetings, 8 hours of tolerating things you don't even like. And suddenly not buying becomes easier than any budgeting app ever made. The rich buy time. The poor sell time at a discount. Don't sell your life cheap just because nobody ever taught you how to price it. If this made you look at your paycheck differently, share it with someone who looks exhausted. And if you want more invisible audits like this, you know what to do.